Welcome to another Fun-Filled Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. This is our first Friday show for the month of August. I'm Sid the Kid, which is me. McGee would be she. You can follow your show on the Twitter, X, NIG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You follow me at Kingdom McGee on the Twitter, X, and at Kingdom McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, so you can catch up on the other live shows that we have airing throughout the week. So if you happen to miss it, you can go back and listen to them and watch them at your own leisure. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app today. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, you can follow us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Please find Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And while you're at it, please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, give War Media a follow on all social media platforms at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, that's at War Media, WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any very definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza, we call it Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always hit us up in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly or stupid, I've given Lakina full power to give you fools to be a lame be a boot.
Cheers.
But before we begin, we must remind you, you also can catch Sports Zone Chicago, now available on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate the squad, get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, you have some handheld devices laying around. iPhone, iPad, iTouch. No, not the flip phone, but your personal PC or your Chromebook like I'm using right now. Just head up the Google Play Store and download the Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide. Struggling.
Well, allergies is that time of year, Sid. It's August. What can we say? We got a lot to talk about here on Second City Sports. We've got conference musical chairs as various schools are making moves as college football season approaches. Of course, we got our girl Christine Manika for her weekly visit because she's going to be off after this visit. So she's going to talk. I'm sure she's going to talk White Sox, NFL, and all the other stuff that's happening, and so much more. But Sid, let's talk some Bears because Bears and NFL like power segment, however you want to say it.
Yes, and shout out to our guy, Mr. Brendan Schutz. How are you, my man? Happy Friday. Hope you're doing well. The Bears, Lakina, we talked about them needing a pass rush all off season. It looks like they got their man. His name is Yannick Ngakoue. He signed a 1-year deal for worth over $10.5 million for a 1-year deal. He's going to lead the Bears defensive line because, as we talked about before, the Bears needed a pass rusher. They didn't address that in the free agency. They did not address that in the draft. They addressed it here as we're almost 2 weeks into training camp.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a solid pass rusher. He had 20 and a half sacks the last 2 years with Vegas and last season with the Colts. Now, it is a little concerning that this is going to be his 4th team in the last 5 years, so there's a little bit of concern. But compared to the rest of the team, he had 20 and a half sacks, like I said. The nearest guy only has 6.5, and that was Roquan before he got traded to the Ravens. So. I guess he definitely feels a need. I mean, look, it's fine. I mean, look, well, he's not I don't want to say he's a big guy, but he's very speedy. So I think that definitely will help the Bears in that front. I mean, look, anyone was going to be an upgrade from what they didn't have especially after Roquan left. So, we got traded, I should say. So that's look, I mean, he feels a need. Sure, it's cool. Look, he kind of he's definitely that guy that can kind of eat up eat up. I can't talk today either. Can eat up downs and whatnot. So he definitely is. He's got a big guy, that huge guy. And I know there's been some various videos, from old tweets that he posted, his speed and whatnot. He is a very speedy defensive end, and he definitely fills that need. But look, I'm seeing like a lot of Bears fans say, "Oh, well, look, we're gonna win the division now. We're gonna go to the Super Bowl and all that." I'm like, okay, you guys are take it down a couple of notches, but. Look, this is a nice signing. I mean, look, they took their time. Poles took his time to sign somebody. He was the top, and Gawa was the top guy on the market. So they did get their guy. They got like 10.5 million. He's gonna have like a lot, and I think about 10 million guaranteed or something like that. So, look, he fulfills a need. Okay, great. I mean, he knows the scheme. Okay, like I said, look, it was a nice signing, but I'm not gonna, jump up and down like, yeah, we're gonna go to the playoffs now with him. Okay, let's slow it down a bit, folks.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you my next question, but I'll ask this to our audience or of our listeners and viewers out there watching us on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your answers in the comments section. What does the signing of Yannick Ngakoue mean to the Bears in terms of wins? Does it give them one more win, 2 more wins, 3 more wins, perhaps push them into the playoffs? Should everything go right for them this year, i.e. barring any major injuries? Does this make a 7 or possibly 8-win team now a 9-win, 10-win team a possible division champion? What's your answer? We'd like to hear those in the comments, see those answers in the comments section. Lakina, I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to go to the playoffs, at least on paper. It looks good, but we haven't started preseason yet, and there's a big factor called injury. So it looks good on paper right now, but like we've been saying, I'll still say it here. We got to see this team in action in preseason, and we got to see if they have any major injuries between now and the start of the season in September.
I think that's really gonna be a thing here. I mean, he's avoided like any major injuries. I mean, he did have throat surgery, late last season. And, that's why he was on IR with the Colts. But I think he had like a lacerated throat or something like that. So, I mean, not other than that, really like not a big concern. Their injury isn't an issue, but you kind of wonder like, okay, why does he like staying in one spot? So again, that's another sort of like thing that you kind of have to worry about. But again, look, he eats, he'll eat up guys, on the edge. They get to think their edge rusher. He was a top guy, so I'm fine with it. I mean, it's fine. But will this, will they win a division because of this? I don't know. I mean, we've been seeing padded practices, this week, and we've heard. Look, I'm not going to make any assumptions from what I've read from folks saying, well, this, Justin Fields, he hit Chase Claypool for a touchdown early this morning, and the defense played really good. I mean, Brisker had an interception. So I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, we know how good or bad this team is going to be just by a few practices. I mean, we just don't know for sure. So it's a little bit kind of disconcerting that people want to make those assumptions, but you just can't, especially not in today's NFL.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with the Bears as they'll open up their preseason schedule next week, just like everyone else. So speaking of the preseason, Lakina, it kicked off last night at the site of the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. The New York Jets faced off against the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns came out on top last night, Thursday, by the score of 21-16. Lakina, Dorian Robertson, Thompson Robinson, who got the start at quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Actually, he came in the second half, I should say.
Yes, he did.
He really looked good. Zach Wilson, the backup quarterback, one-time starting quarterback for the Jets, but right now he's the backup because Aaron Rodgers is a starter. Zach Wilson, I thought, looked okay last night. He did have one good pass play of 57 yards late in that first half. He was only 3 of 5 for 65 yards. The Jets' defense looked good, but I think Cleveland has something in that Thompson kid. So Thompson Robinson kid. Sorry, yeah. But I like the way he moved out of the pocket, and he does have an arm as well. Of course, he's trying to battle for the backup quarterback position to back up Deshaun Watson. Lakina, I'll be honest with you, that game snuck up on me last night. I didn't know about this game until I went to work yesterday, to be honest with you. I did catch some of the highlights on television and on social media. So football is here. It's going to be here to stay for the next 4 or 5 months.
And I think we all are looking forward to that. Now, yeah, I mean, I kind of let the game out in the background. I actually I didn't know either. I thought it was next Thursday. But
Mm-hmm.
again, I heard, thank God, us Uverse customers have the NFL Network back, yay! And they were talking about
Yeah.
it on there. So yeah, I mean, look, Dorian Thompson Robinson. I mean, look, the rookie from UCLA. He looked really good. I mean, he had a touchdown pass and had some nice little rushing. So yeah, he might definitely, especially Kellen Mond. I mean, he was okay. He had a touchdown, but also a bad interception. So definitely gonna be a
Mm-hmm.
battle between those two to back up Deshaun Watson. The Jets look pretty good. I mean, like you said, Aaron Rodgers didn't play. Actually, a lot of their top guys did not play. So
Mm-hmm.
Robert Saleh kind of put out there that he's not gonna. Sauce Gardner didn't play. Quinn Williams didn't play either. So yeah, so a lot of their top guys did not play. So it's kind of hard to make a conclusion. But look, this is more for guys like the Thompson Robinsons, um, you know, Israel Abakenda, I should say, one of the guys that's vied for those backup spots. Travis Dye had didn't have the worker from Oregon didn't have his best, had
Mm-hmm.
only 9 carries for 12 yards, so not a good showing by him, on the Jets side. But this is more for guys like the names I mentioned, those late round guys that that you wanted that are vying for those pivotal spots on the team.
I was listening to a lot of New York sports radio yesterday, Lakina, and they were talking about this preseason being an important one for backup quarterback Zach Wilson because Aaron Rodgers is there. People assume he's going to be there for 1 year. I think he's going to be there for 2. But regardless, Zach Wilson has 2 years left on his contract, including this season. How important is the preseason for him? Because he's got to prove to not just to himself, but to the organization, perhaps to the rest of the league, that he's a viable quarterback. Whether he's going to be a starter down the road after Aaron Rodgers leaves the Jets in a couple of years, we assume, I don't know. But I think that, me personally, that Zach Wilson's career and his reputation is on the line here. He's got to prove it in every preseason game, every opportunity he gets. How important is this preseason for him in your view?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a I don't want to say it's a make or break preseason for him, but I think he definitely wants to kind of at least be sort of formidable in case knock on wood, A-Rod gets hurt and they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
need a backup with them. So we saw what happened last year. We found out a lot of the Jets players weren't really believers in Wilson. So
Mm-hmm.
I think this is definitely. I don't want to say this is like I said, I don't think this is make or break, but I think it's definitely an important preseason for Wilson to kind of for name purposes to kind of make sure hey, I can be trusted in case something happens. So I think he looked okay. Yes, last night I should say. So yeah, like I said, it was a solid showing by him. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely kind of like a make or break. This is sort of like a pivotal preseason for Wilson.
And don't forget, if you guys missed last night's preseason game, I'm sure it's going to be airing all weekend on NFL Network. And starting Tuesday night on HBO, you'll see some of the behind-the-scenes footage as this year's Hard Knocks team will feature the 2023 New York Jets. And the rest of the preseason schedule will kick off next Thursday through Sunday for the rest of the teams in the National Football League, including our Chicago Bears.
All right, real quick before we go, we're going to rub against it. But the Saints defensive end Cam Jordan have agreed to a 2-year, $27.5 million guaranteed contract extension that ties into the Saints through 2025. His agent has made that report. At 34, he got the most guarantees in salary in NFL history for a defensive player his age. Still plays at a very high level. He's an 8-time Pro Bowl. He's a franchise leader in career sacks, and he has said himself that he wants to finish his career with the Saints. And it's definitely interesting the fact that we know his dad Steve played in the league for the Vikings and is in the Ring of Honor.
That's right. He was a tight end. Yeah, number 83.
Yep,
83.
Yep. I know, right? Makes us feel old, but yeah, this is a guy that's very durable, of course, and he's definitely kind of like that, sort of like that, that proven leader that that he's actually a good guy off the field, and also too he has a TV career. We've seen him do various stuff for various networks. So once he does retire after 2025, we'll see. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of networks gonna be vying for his services. So what do you think about this contract for Jordan and the Saints?
This is very good for New Orleans, of course. Even though he's a little bit older, Cam Jordan's still one of the best underrated pass rushers in the league. We know that the Saints have been very good with the defense over the last few years. They just couldn't get that offense together. Now they have a viable quarterback in Derek Carr. They're the prohibited I'm sure there will be the overwhelming prohibitive favorites to win that NFC South division because you don't know about that rest of the division.
Right.
With Atlanta's a new quarterback. Tampa Bay has Baker Mayfield, but I don't know if he's going to last the whole year as the starting quarterback. Carolina is going with Bryce Young, so they're starting something new with him and then their new head coach, Mr. Frank Reich. So the Saints, that was a very good signing, and I expect them to be one of the top 10 defensive teams in the league again. They have a very good secondary. We know about Rashawn Lattimore and some of those hard hitters that they have. So Cameron Jordan fits that mold very well. He's one of the best leaders in the league. So, and he's one of the leaders on that team. So it's a very good sign from New Orleans, which should, at least on paper, help them be the overwhelming favorites to win the NFC South.
Yeah, that should be very interesting. We'll talk more about the NFC South when we do our divisional previews because I think they're definitely the favorites in that division. So I think now that they have Jordan back into the fold, I mean, this is gonna should be very interesting to see what happens there. Now we're gonna take a really quick break and we're gonna go switch gears and talk a little bit of Diamond here on Second City Sports. Cubs win 3 out of 4 against the Reds, and we found out the Reds are. We'll talk more about that. The Sox. We'll avoid that too.
Oh, the hell with them.
The hell with them. And also too, of course, we'll talk about some of the debuts of the teams. Ohtani once again did something that has not been done before, and I think that's a given
really?
now.
What hasn't he done?
yeah, I think that's a definitive. That's definitely I guess a question. What hasn't he done? But so we're talking some baseball talk coming up next. Akita B. Sydney Brown, Second City Sports on Chicago. Baseball talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on a Friday edition on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in living color. I'm Sid the Kid, which is me. That's like Kim McGee, which is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, and Keenan's going to be on the IG.
We have less than 85 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you want to hit us up in the comment section, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And as we get into our baseball talk, Lakina, we'll start with the North Siders. Professionally, they are known as the Chicago Cubs. They have won 13 out of their last 16 games, including taking 3 out of the 4 against the current NL Central Division leaders, the Cincinnati Reds, at the friendly confines.
Yeah, they had a definitely offensive machine on Tuesday and Wednesday. They scored, I think, 36 runs, which is easily the most they've scored in their franchise history. And just to there are so many records there. I can't go through all of them, but just also too, they scored 16 runs on Wednesday and they scored 20 on Tuesday. I guess a Bears Bengals game broke out. That's the most in their 2 game span within a season. Going back to 1897. They've also scored 145 runs since the All-Star break, over 40 runs more than any other team. And also too, they have the best record since the All-Star break. So that's just a little crazy stat there. They also became the first team in MLB history to have 10 extra base hits and 5 home runs in consecutive games. They have more runs and more home runs than all of the AL Central combined to begin August. So we'll get to the AL Central in a second. I know Sid does not want to talk about his White Sox, but it's one of those things where you kind of, yes, I know they played the Cardinals and they played the Nationals, and we found that Cincinnati, yes, they have great offense, but apparently there are about 7 Eloy Jimenez out there on the field because there were a couple of errors. They were like, what the heck's going on there? But I digress. Now on the game that they actually ended up sweeping, they only scored 5 runs, but it was enough. They won 5-3. So it was really solid. Winning 3 out of 4. Winning 3 out of 4 after losing a tough one 6-5. And Stroman, we'll get to Stroman in a second, but this isn't going to last forever because if they do play Atlanta, we'll talk about Atlanta and what they've done this week in a second. But this is sort of one of those things where you do what you're supposed to. You win 3 out of 4. You make it go some minor moves. I know some people would rather that they had made some more moves, but they got I can't say his name when they got the guy they got from the Nationals, Heimer Candelario.
Yes, Heimer yeah, you said it.
Yeah. He became the first Cubs player in his debut to have 4 hits in his season debut on Tuesday. So, on Wednesday, I should say. So, that was he's already paying dividends there. So, they're getting it from all sides. Or, Chris Monroe had a couple of big hits. Ian F has a couple of good ones. Cody Bellinger, the reigning NL Player of the Month for July, he continues to hit the ball very well. So they're getting it from all sides, and I think that's definitely what's really helping. Now, look, we know this is probably not going to go on forever, obviously, but for where they were, they did what they had to do against the division leader, and that's nothing short of incredible.
Yeah, it's nothing short of incredible. As we said all year, Lakina Sousa, this started pitching staff. If they pitch well, so goes the Cubs. But as we said before, too, if this Cubs team scores between 6 and 8 runs, usually the team wins. You saw they took advantage of a bad Cincinnati starting staff. Unfortunately, they didn't do anything at the trade deadline. We'll get to some of the other moves that other teams made in just a moment. But the Cubs took advantage of the Cincinnati Reds' mistakes. After losing the first game on Monday, they outscored the Reds 41-18 for the remainder of that series. And bats came alive like Seiya Suzuki and Ian Happ to a lesser extent. Don't forget about not Tucker Bernhardt too, but Michael Talkman. We talked about him before, playing leadoff right now. He had a big series. And Christopher Morel, he's on the current 10-game, 11-game hitting streak. He's batting .350 with 6 extra base hits and 10 RBI. That is amazing. We talked about him when he came up back in May, how he electrified that Cubs offense. At the same time, that's when Cody Bellinger went out too. But ever since Cody Bellinger returned, their offense for the Cubs has picked up. Christopher Morel is doing his thing right now as well. So whoever had a bat for the Cubs, including that newcomer, they caught fire. But like you said, Lakeem, this is not going to last forever. But they took advantage of Cincinnati's mistakes. They really saw the ball well within the strike zone. They took advantage of the pitches they were given.
Yeah, and I think that's all you can ask for too, right? I mean, James Italian got his 4th straight win yesterday after
he looked a little shaky early.
Yeah, earlier, but he did settle down. So I think that's what you can ask for, to not give up, any more runs. So that's what you wanted for Italian. So luckily that didn't come back, and the Cubs were able to come back. So luckily that didn't come back to bite him in the butt. But I think this is sort of like you're getting contributions from everybody. Ian Happ had 2 home runs in Wednesday's game, 16-6. Throttling, and it's definitely one of those things where you're just like it's insane how these numbers, and like you said, it's not going to last. We know that they're going to regress. Hopefully they don't, but hopefully they don't regress, especially since they are going to play. They're playing Atlanta this weekend, starting tonight, and today I should say in a little bit. But yeah, hopefully they can. It gets a little bit tougher for the Cubs. I mean, look, they did take advantage of I don't want to say a quote unquote easy part of their schedule, but look, they got 3 against Atlanta. They got 3 after that. They go on the road for 3 against the Mets. They basically have had a fire sale. We'll get to that in a second. They played Toronto. That's good. In Toronto, that's going to be a very tough. That's actually be an interesting little matchup there between their bats and Toronto's bats. We'll get to them in a second. They got the White Sox. Second half of that little 2-game interleague play there, and of course they got Kansas City, Detroit. So once they get past Atlanta and Toronto, a lot of these other games are actually pretty winnable. So they can kind of put together even a bigger run, and perhaps maybe be like kind of like knock on the door with Milwaukee and Cincy. And they do play Milwaukee and Cincy even more later this month and also into next month. So a lot still aside in that NL Central.
Yeah, as we said, Lakina, if they were around 500 by the time the trade deadline gets here, the Cubs would make a move, and as long as they played slightly above 500 baseball, they would be there, because coming to the season, we didn't expect St. Louis to be as bad as they are. Pittsburgh had a surprising start, but they're back to where we thought they were supposed to be. Cincinnati, as I said before, people thought they were supposed to be the Oakland A's of the National League. They said, they took off. I know Hunter Green is hurt now. Shout out to my guy, Ellie De La Cruz, who hit a solo home run to open the game last night, but I know he didn't do too much in that series. But Cincinnati has been a surprise to the division. Milwaukee, we thought where Milwaukee is right now, we thought they were going to be where they are, but no one thought that Cincinnati was going to catch fire. They have since the early part of June, because the Cubs are right in the middle. As we said before, the Cubs would be there if they slightly play above 500 ball. Now they're 2 games behind the last wild card spot in the National League, 2.5 behind Cincinnati in that division. So this series was very important. So as long as the Cubs don't have too many major injuries outside of Marcus Stroman, which I think is a break more than injuries, just me personally, but as long as the Cubs don't have too many major injuries, they will be there at the end once we get started with September. You just ran off their schedule. You should be right there where you are right now. I'm not going to say they should be in first place by the time August ends, but there should be no less than 3 games behind. I'm talking about in the division.
Yeah, they should be like right there. Yeah, they should be really right there, bringing in whoever, the Brewers or Reds. I'm sure they're going to be, because they're going to be seeing something back and forth, because they play each other too more times as well later in the month. So there's no excuse for the Cubs to not be there when it's all said and done by the end of August, going to the last month of this 2 weeks of the season in September. So could be very interesting in that division. As listen, I can see sports on Sports on Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Let's get the White Sox talk out the way. Said they got swept by the Rangers.
No, the Rangers, they established themselves as one of the best teams in the American League. I know they picked up Max Scherzer from the New York Mets. I know he had a rough first inning. Sometimes he's been known to do that, but after the first inning, he settled down in yesterday's win over the Sox. Tuki Toussaint, unfortunately, could be one of your starting pitchers next year. And the Sox don't do anything in free agency. He had a nice outing in some sorts, but the long ball has killed him since he's been up here for the last month. And yesterday, blowing that 3-0 lead, it's just a microcosm of a long season for the White Sox. Now on Tuesday, when the trade deadline passed, of course, they lost a tough 1-2. Jesse Schultz has actually pitched well, but the Sox could get in the offense. And of course, on Wednesday, they get blasted. Of course, yesterday, they blow an early 3-0 lead, and they lose 5-3. I don't know what else to say, Lakina, as far as this season, but we're going to have a lot of discussion in terms of what the White Sox direction will be during this offseason. Of course, if you believe the reports on Tuesday leading up to the trade deadline, Dylan Cease and Baltimore Orioles were having very heavy conversations with the White Sox about acquiring Dylan Cease. Obviously, that didn't come to pass, but you would think teams like Baltimore, maybe the Dodgers, and maybe some other teams may have some discussions with the White Sox this coming off season. I'll say this right now, Seville Street, I want to keep Dylan Cease. By the way, he has 2 years left under control of the White Sox before he becomes a free agent. Yes, he's a Scott Boras client, but if Dylan Cease gets traded this coming off season or around this time next year, the White Sox are in a full rebuild mode, and I don't think the White Sox fan base is going to sit through another one for another 4 or 5 years. I think the Sox is with these moves. The Sox are trying to tell you, we're trying to do what the folks did what the folks on the north side are doing currently. Take a year and a half off in terms of rebuilding this thing quickly. Yes, the White Sox farm system looks great on paper, but they still have a long way to go. But we want to make this rebuild, quote unquote, quicker than what we did 6-7 years ago. But I don't think the White Sox fans this time is going to buy it. We'll see what the White Sox do this off season.
Well, I think, they said that I think what he said, he does want to, he's kind of a bit back and forth on whether or not he wants to stay here. So that's going to be really going to be interesting once the season, especially when I think they were very close with Baltimore, but I guess they couldn't agree on, different, the prospects, because they got Baltimore's got a pretty deep farm system over there. So it'll be interesting what happens with that. I mean, look, the Texas series, okay, yay. Just, they played Cleveland. In Cleveland, yippee! So I don't know what else to say. At this point with this team, I think I'm just looking forward to the season being over with. They're 43-67. Who cares?
Do you think this team will lose 100 games?
I hope not.
It's looking that way right now.
It's looking that way, but let me look at their schedule real quick. But I don't know. Look. Luis Robert had a nice, probably one of a few bright spots in that series. They play Cleveland, of course, this weekend. They got the Yankees. We'll talk about the craziness going on there in a little bit. They play Milwaukee, of course. They got the Cubs, Colorado. Seattle, we'll see where they at. Oakland and Baltimore. So I'm not saying they're going to lose 100, but I think they're going to lose close to it. I don't know if they're going to I don't know if they're going to end up being like 120 or anything like that. I think they will get close to it. I think they'll probably lose about 90, 95. But it's just like, it's brutal. I think just counting the weeks until the season's over with.
I was telling somebody this last week. Even the White Sox lose close to 100 games, they're not going to get the number one pick. Thank you, Oakland. Thank you, Kansas City, which two teams that are worse than you. So you get a top 5 pick. Okay, but do you really trust Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams to really redo this thing? But I guess we have no choice, right?
Right.
Because I don't think old man Jerry Reinsdorf is going to fire those two, which is unfortunate.
That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
So we'll probably talk to our girl Christine about that. I'm getting depressed. Let's move on because I'm getting depressed. Talking White Sox makes me depressed.
You more than I am.
I just want the season to be over with now. I'm a little, I'm kind of ambivalent with the White Sox right now. So I'm like, they're on the pay no mind list. So, and I know. Oh, look, I think even when they did it Scherzer for those first 2 innings, I was like, they're gonna blow it. They're not gonna, because the Rangers are too good of a team. They got a great hitting. Corey Seager, came back for the series. Already hit a home run in an 11-1 shellacking. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So let's move on because I'm getting depressed. So what caught your eye in MLB this week?
Speaking of Toronto, Baltimore took 3 out of 4 north of the border. Speaking of the New York Mets, after their fire sale with Justin Verlander now going back to the Houston Astros, which no one saw that coming to the last couple of days of the trade deadline earlier this week. The Mets got swept by the Kansas City Royals. You think if you're a White Sox fan, you have problems with you do. Check out the New York Mets. They got swept by the Royals. I know the White Sox can't beat them either, but nor can the New York Mets. Go figure. And the Philadelphia Phillies, they take care of the Miami Marlins. Congratulations, Jake Berger. Congratulations to that Miami Marlins organization. They put together a Jake Berger promo. Yay! Something the White Sox couldn't do.
Yeah, $5. It was like $5 for burgers or something.
Yes.
Or was it something like that? I saw that. He actually ended up hitting the game winning run. So home run. So yeah, that ended up actually being a nice day for her. I know his wife was I don't want to say she insulted the Sox, but I think she kind of felt like, oh, okay, they finally are actually showing using his their last name to market. So which I don't never understood why the Sox never did it, but what can you do? But that was a nice little show, and we'll see how he does with the Marlins. I mean, they're still right there in the NL wild card, so we'll see if he can make dividends with that. And want to give I know our buddy Brandy here, as we're talking, been waiting for us to talk about his Houston Astros. Framber Valdez, congrats to him. He threw a no-hitter on Wednesday, and only 93 pitches. 93 pitches. That's like a dream. If you could, hit
that's a great man's type game.
threw a no, you throw a no hitter with only 93 pitches. I mean, that's like he wasn't even tired afterwards. He wasn't even nice in his arm. You saw his presser. Of course, the last guy to do was Justin Verlander for the Astros, in 2019, and also too. Let's see here. He's the first lefty for in the franchise history to do that. So good for Valdez. I mean, you gotta give him a little bit of give him a shout out there. But yeah, I mean, that was a really cool moment. I mean, they sweep the Guardians. They lose a tough opener to the Yankees 4-3. So that was a tough loss for them. But a nice week though, nonetheless, for the Astros.
Yeah, also, too, speaking of the powerhouses in the American League, the New York Yankees, of course, now with Aaron Judge back. I know they took care of the Houston Astros last night in the first of the 4-game series in Yankee Stadium over the weekend. They beat the Astros. But earlier this week, the Yankees lost 2 out of 3 to the Tampa Bay Rays. Are you starting to be a believer again in Tampa Bay, or do you need to see more?
I need to see a little bit more, especially the way Baltimore's been playing lately. I mean, they've been playing pretty well. Like you say, they won 3 out of 4 against Toronto. But look, we know how good that Baltimore squad is. They have nice depth. So I'm not okay, but yeah, I mean, look, Jack Flaherty, his first his debut with Baltimore, he pitched 6 innings, so. A very solid 6 innings to kind of tame that great lineup. Of course, Bo Bichette for Toronto, he's going to be out for it's not too serious, so he might miss he'll be back next week. But that was a sort of a kind of a nice little showing by Flaherty in his debut. So it's definitely one of those things where you're kind of like I think Baltimore and Tampa, they're going to be playing each other a lot these next few weeks. So this could end up those meetings could end up actually deciding the AL East.
Yeah, the Minnesota Twins, speaking of AL Central, the terrible AL Central, looks like the Twins are going to take that division. What a shock. They took 2 out of 3 against the St. Louis Cardinals on the road. Like you said, Cleveland got swept in Houston. They traded Aaron Savali to the Tampa Bay Rays. I think that's a good sneaky move for Tampa Bay as they try to add up to pitching depth. Your Seattle Mariners took 2 out of 3 at home against the Boston Red Sox. I think that was very much needed for Seattle, but they got to string some wins together here as we can get into the mid portion of August. And the Atlanta Braves, they're taking on the Cubs in a few minutes to start their weekend series. The Braves took 2 out of 3 against the Anaheim Angels. They knocked out Lucas Giolito on Wednesday in his worst outing, only in his second start in the Angels uniform.
Yeah, they had 200 home runs in that Tuesday game in their 104th game. That's the second fastest in MLB history. Only the 2019 Twins got there faster, 103 games. So, just a juggernaut there. So hopefully the Cubs will be able to kind of tame that offense, with Ronald Acuna Jr., among others. So, that's going to be interesting. That should be a fun series there between the Braves and the Cubs. Now, as far as the rest of the league is concerned, the Dodgers are, again, kind of a sort of a, look, they swept Oakland. So, yeah, I know that's not really saying much, but.
Lance Lynn got his first start in the Dodger uniform.
Yeah, got his first win. So, well, look, not a bad way to get it against the A's. So, Freddie Freeman had 3 hits, and a couple of RBIs. So, that's again. It's I know it's the A's, but look, sweeping the A's is always a good. Anything less than a sweep, I think, is a bad thing if you're playing the A's. So, I think that was a nice showing by them. The Giants. Let me see if I can get them up here. The Giants. I mean, look, they had an okay week. I mean, they're still 2.5 back against. Winning, sweeping, I should say, getting 3 out of 4 against the Diamondbacks. So that should help them a little bit, put a little bit of a distance between them in that division. They're still 2.5 back on the Dodgers. So should be interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, I think, look, that NL West, I think, is still a lot to be decided there. And I think the Giants and the Dodgers are going to be playing each other a lot the next couple of months. So still a lot to be decided that division too.
And we're going back to the NL Central. The Milwaukee Brewers lose 2 out of 3 in our nation's capital against the Washington Nationals. And looking, as we said before, about going back to the Cubs. As long as the Cubs play 500, slightly above 500 baseball, Milwaukee continues to trip over his own 2 feet along with Cincinnati. The Cubs will be right there. And it should be right there as far as the division. They're there right now, but they should be at the same spot or a little bit better by the time the month of August ends. So Milwaukee, as people think they think they're supposed to take off, they're not doing that just yet. They lose 2 out of 3 to one of the worst teams in the National League.
And that's not good when you're in a very competitive division. Well, I wouldn't say competitive in the sense that there's a little bit of a distance between them.
Right.
So yeah, that's not something you want to do. You did not want to lose 2 out of 3 to the Nationals. Yeah, that's the last thing you need, especially when you have 2 teams breathing down your neck. So that's the thing you don't want to do. But yeah, I mean, look, okay. So which trade real quick before we talk about the schedule, which trade kind of like either scratched your head, were you surprised by? I know you mentioned a couple, but what trades kind of like stuck out to you?
Yeah, and let's not forget San Diego did take 2 out of 3 against Colorado earlier this week. And so San Diego's trying to make it back to 500. And they're now only 1 game below 500. So we'll see what happens with the Padres. Now, going back to the trades you just mentioned, Mr. Flaherty from the St. Louis Cardinals, I thought that Baltimore would go all in, quote unquote, for Justin Verlander. Obviously, that didn't happen. Of course, we talked about the Dylan Cease situation earlier, but I think Flaherty is going to be okay for Baltimore. As we mentioned, he won his first start yesterday as Baltimore takes 3 out of 4 in Toronto. As we talked about also before, the Baltimore needed that veteran presence in that starting rotation. You talk about Kyle Gibson and Kramer, and I think Flaherty is going to be okay. Now we'll see what happens if he gets the first nod for the playoffs as a starter. We'll see about that. Also, too, I think Max Scherzer was a great move for Texas. I think I'm not going to hand them the AL West division title yet because I still think Houston will be heard from now since they have Verlander. So that race in the AL West division is going to come down to I believe the last days of the season, perhaps the last day of the season. But Texas has put themselves in a very good position.
Yeah, I think that that trade by getting Scherzer. I know he had a little bit of a rough start against the Sox yesterday, but I think that definitely will help him once he starts selling in, and that's fine with this. But like I said, I really like the Jordan Hicks trade from the to the Blue Jays. I mean, I know.
Yes.
I know that they lost 2 out of 3 to the Orioles. We know that, but I think that's definitely helped because they really need the pitch, especially in the middle relief. So that's really going to be the thing here, and hopefully they can kind of figure it out and sort of be still, probably they're still within striking distance of the division, but the wild card might be, a little bit of a distance between them and the wild card. So a lot sort of to be decided there still in baseball. So it's a really good trade. So. The Sox, I know the White Sox, traded a lot of guys that they didn't trade Cease. I know Robert Jr., they got some calls for him as well. So, the Sox, I mean, we'll see, they traded 7 guys. We'll see how it kind of all shakes out with that, with these, a lot of these minor league guys. So, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see with that.
Yeah. And don't forget Kenyon Middleton, who was one of the best pitchers for the White Sox in their bullpen. He was traded to the New York Yankees. He's definitely going to help out the Yankees a lot.
Definitely need that. Desperately need that help there. Now let's go to the scheduling for this weekend. Some interesting matchups. We talked about the Atlanta and Chicago, the Cubs. I mean, they'll be pitching in the first pitch in about 20 minutes. You got Tampa Bay and Detroit. The first game of that series will be on Apple TV Plus. A little special to those of you in Tampa and Detroit. Washington and Cincinnati. Houston and the Yankees. That's another game in the Apple TV Plus. So those of you in New York and Houston, you're gonna have to check on the avenue to watch the first game of that series. Kansas City and Philadelphia. The Mets and Baltimore. Mets in their fire sale. The Guardians host the White Sox. It's a worse scheduling too. With that, we'll get to that later in a little bit. But also to Toronto and Boston in the AL East.
Finish out the weekend series schedule. The Florida Marlins will visit the Texas Rangers. Important series for both teams. More important for the Marlins. We have the Arizona and Minnesota. Go Diamondbacks still. We have Pittsburgh and Milwaukee. That's their resume their 4-game weekend series from north of the border from us. Colorado and St. Louis. We have Seattle Mariners at LA to take on the Angels. And we have the Dodgers and the Padres. That should be a fun weekend series. Remember, no Fox Saturday baseball this week because of the Women's World Cup. Of course, Fox had their 2 games last night with Houston, the Yankees, of course, Pittsburgh and Milwaukee. So no Fox Saturday baseball for this week. Your Sunday national TV schedule looks like this. On Peacock at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Yes, those sad-ass Chicago White Sox will travel to Cleveland to take on the Guardians. And your Sunday night baseball game of the week on ESPN for Sunday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. The LA Dodgers will take on the San Diego Padres.
Also going back to tomorrow, you got the second game of that series, the Dodgers and the Padres, will be on FS1 since there's no Fox Saturday night game.
And that's your schedule for MLB this weekend.
All right, Sid. So let's take a really quick break. Of course, I know we're up against it, but let's take a really quick break. We're going to talk some conference realignment and how I'm not very happy about it. I'll save my little mini.
You don't say.
Yeah, I'll save my little mini rant about it after the break. Of course, with some of the what we'll talk about. I'm sure it's been documented these last couple of days, especially in the last couple of hours, I guess. And also our girl Christine Mack over KXRB. We'll talk about that. Bears, Sox, and a whole lot more. A lot to do still in the second hour. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown's Tech City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Hour 2 coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean,
Do you know that you're in my lane?
No, not at all.
Are you not paying attention? Are you texting?
I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6.
It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention.
I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up.
My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention.
It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
All right, welcome back to hour number 2 of this Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in Little Bit Color right here on Sports Soul Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brownhead. That's me. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's X, SIDKIDA0. That's SIDKIDA0 on Instagram and the Twitter, X.
X is X all around. You can follow me at Keita McGee on the Twitter, X, _McGee on the IG.
We have less than 55 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can hit us up in the comments section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV.
All right, Sid. So, interesting last few days, I guess you could say, for college sports. I guess where to start because there's so many things that are happening. It looks like Arizona's going to the Big 12, leaving the Pac-12, and it looks like nothing's official yet. But I guess the board of regions for the for the Big 12, I should say, they're doing their voting. And I guess now that just came out, Oregon and Washington might be going to the Big 10, even though we were told that it wasn't going to happen. It looks like it is happening. I guess it's going to be unanimous because there are some Big 10 teams that were that weren't really receptive to that. So it's like, oh, my head hurts. And look, I don't want to go into a long rant about this. So I'll let my buddy Sid have the floor here. But I'm going to say this. I just feel like I would take a cue from our buddy Twan Staley, who covers the Jets for New York Daily News, and he said the same thing. I think a lot of us are feeling, who are big college football fans, especially. There's going to be a lot of we're going to lose Oklahoma State, the Bedlam series after this season when Oklahoma leaves to go to the SEC. We've already lost Oklahoma, Nebraska. When Nebraska led to the Big Ten, I know we got that back, last year, but there was about a decade before they weren't playing each other. Then some other rivalries. Syracuse, we got Syracuse a pick because they just happen to be the same conference now in the ACC. But there's so many rivalries and such. I mean, it's big money, network money, and stream money. I guess too. I guess you could add that in there is ruining college football, and I don't like it. See, I kept it very G-rated. Yay! So then I'm gonna let you have the floor and tell me what you think.
First, with the Pac-12 situation, we talked about this before we went on live on air today. Of course, there was rumor that they had the Apple TV deal package all signed, sealed, and delivered, but a couple of those schools in the Pac-12 conference said, hold up, wait a minute. We don't like some of the particulars of this deal. We won't go into a long when the details of it, but the Pac-12 looks like they've been late to the party for years because other schools, and especially the two that left with USC, UCLA joining the Big Ten starting next season in the summer of 2025. The Pac-12 is going down in a Titanic ship, SHIP for those who's going at home, as we know it. And as a business person, you have to say things for what they are, not what you want them to be. Of course, you worry about the present terms, but you got to see down the road. You got to look into the futures and see, almost jumping the cover of what you think is going to happen. And I don't think the Pac-12 has done that. And now, remember, Lakina, we talked about this early in the year about San Diego State possibly joining the Pac-12. I guess they saw the same things that we did. We got to go back to the Mountain West. So now what you mentioned with Arizona leaving to go into the Big 12, maybe Arizona State, if you don't want to lose that rivalry, I think they may join them too, although there hasn't been anything imminent yet with Arizona State. But the Pac-12 is going to fade as we know it, especially now, like you mentioned, with the SEC getting stronger for next year along with the Big 10. It looks like it's going to be the halves against the half-nots. I think for next year, or after next season, we'll get the expanded 12-team college football playoff, which would be great. But it seems like to me it's going to be between the halves and the have-nots. And these Power 5 conferences are only getting stronger by the day. As we always say, it comes down to the money at the end of the day.
It's unfortunate too. I mean, I know one of our, someone tweeted this out. Alex Thomas. I want to give you a shout out there. Shout out here. He said that they want the college version of the AFC versus NFC is going to kill rivalries, like we've talked about, and everything we love about college football. It's sad, honestly, what makes college unique and fun is being stolen. And yeah, he's right. And I feel like this whole thing, losing rivalries and traditions and things like that. I mean, Rutgers, USC, for okay, and then UCLA and Illinois. I mean, I know they faced each other a couple of times in the Rose Bowl. I mean, okay, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I mean, it's sort of one of those things where you're kind of just like, okay, what the hell is happening? Like, what's going on? Like, who?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I forgot. Look, I forgot that Hampton wasn't even in the MEAC anymore. I know people forget that they're not in the MEAC. I think they're like I guess one of the coastal conferences. But it's definitely one of those things where you can't just say cry foul at the end of the day. I'm trying to get Jay Billis's tweet, of course, ESPN, who's very vocal about things with NCAA. That's one of the reasons why we love about him. And remember too, Florida State is barking. That's concerning that they may put it out there that they may want to leave the ACC. So a lot of things are kind of happening, and I don't like what's happening here. And it's sort of it's kind of like, okay, traditions. Look, we know this stuff happens. We see it happen. We saw it happen 20 years ago and whatnot, but this is actually getting ridiculous. And I think just the absurdity of it is just it's just maddening at this point. And like I said, I do not like it at all.
And those schools, are we talking about those big time, even those mid-major schools? They see the money that's been given out to these Power 5 conferences by these TV networks, and everybody wants to jump in the pool. And I get it, but like I said, some things shouldn't be sacred. It should be sacred. Some things should not be tarnished, like your traditional rivalries and so forth. So I get that standpoint, but I don't know, Lakina, and hopefully we can get these two gentlemen on this program down the road. But I don't know if you had a chance to check out the latest episode of The Full Goal with Jason Goff, former 670 scorer host. I don't know if you listened to it. It was released earlier today. He had Anthony Herron on from 670 score, of course, with NBC now in the Big Ten Network. And they were talking about the realignment of the Big Ten. And I think Anthony made the comment of, if you really want to be real about it, I'm just paraphrasing here a little bit, but Anthony said that if you want to be real, the Big Ten doesn't want the Pac-12 to go away. One, because of the Rose Bowl bid, if you don't get into the conference championship. And number two, he said, but with the traveling issues, I think the basketball teams, with the UCLA, USC, they're going to find out next year that traveling to the Central Time Zone, the East Coast, how many of your fans really, especially talking about doing basketball season, especially doing the late fall and the early winter, not too many people are going to travel from a warm weather climate to a cold weather climate to see your team play. You're going to travel to outside of Detroit, Ann Arbor to watch Michigan State, Chicago to watch Evanston, Champaign for Illinois, New York City for Rutgers, and outside of Philadelphia for Penn State. You really think that all those UCLA fans and USC for basketball will travel to the East Coast during winter time? No. I think it's going to be a little bit different for football, but it depends on where the schedule is when they schedule those teams to go on the East Coast. But it's going to get ugly in terms of travel. I thought that traveling is for the fans, and I thought that Anthony Herron really brought up a great point.
Well, we talked about it too when the news came out about USC and UCLA joining the Pac-12. I think it was about this time last year. And we said, look, good luck trying to get some of these, especially in the basketball side. I mean, I think they'll try to work it out so that maybe they can play in, at 2:30 our time, which would be about to 11:30 their time, or maybe a little bit later on, maybe at night, so that maybe their body clocks will adjust. So you think about it in college hoops. They're going to be, the UCLA, USC, they're going to be playing a lot of those games, at like 9 o'clock? Well, 9 o'clock their time, perhaps, especially with Oregon and Washington. If that becomes official, they're going to be playing games at 9 a.m. or, 10 a.m., their time. And, their body clocks are not used to that. So I'm wondering, how is that going to react? So they don't think big picture, I think, with some of these border regions and all this stuff. I mean, they just think of, the money, to change. They think about the money, but they don't care. I'm going to take you from Jay Billis. They don't care about the student athletes at the end. So, the NILs and whatever, but, look, these folks, a lot of them, I'll say, maybe got some, folks from the, Big Ten country and, even further east, they may get used to it. But a lot of those folks are going to be from the West Coast, and they're not going to be used to having to play games at 9 a.m., 10 a.m. Look, we saw what happened with Stanford and Northwestern a few years back. They played at 11 a.m., but you can tell that Stanford was not, their body clocks were not ready. That's probably why Northwest was able to beat them so easily. So, it was just one of those things where you're not thinking big picture. And that's not good if you're not thinking big picture. And I think that's another thing that's been missing in all this.
Yeah, and like I said, we talked about that in terms of the college football. Those teams like Maryland and Penn State still a good team prime time, so you can put them on late in the afternoon or early in the evening. But those schools like Maryland, shout out to our girls Shay Pepler, hopefully future guests on this show, Courtney Cronin, Indiana, the Hoosiers. Not all their games are at 2:30, folks, Eastern, our time. Those are noon Eastern time, 11 a.m. start. So you're talking about schools like Maryland, Rutgers, Indiana. Those games, their home games are at 11 a.m. So, like you said, their body clocks for those West Coast teams, UCLA, and USC, and perhaps if Oregon and Washington come join the Big Ten, their body clocks go have to adjust too. So some of those games going to be on early as well.
I think the volleyball aspect of it too. I think in volleyball, I think some of those matches are at 1:00. I think 1 or 2 o'clock, I guess, depending on where you're at. So USC, UCLA. I mean, they're going to have to get used to that as well. They're players, they're volleyball players. So yeah, it's about 11 a.m. noon. So yeah, it probably will be a big issue for them. But at the same time, you wonder like, are they going to have to come maybe a day early to kind of get their bodies used to it? Maybe a day earlier than they usually
you would think.
Are. So they're going to have to figure all that out, and I think the coaches, this is going to be on the coaches. It's going to be on them to kind of make sure that their players are, hydrated, and their minds are right, and their body clocks are, where they should be. So I don't know. I mean, look, this whole thing is really becoming, depressing, disconcerting, and a lot of these, things where we talked about it. I read the tweets about it. It's just, I just like it's sort of like I feel like the college sports, especially as we know it, is just I don't it's just crazy.
One more question about realignment before we move on, Lakina. Someone brought up, I think this was Sports Center or maybe it was Full Go. I don't know. I heard it somewhere this morning talking about Notre Dame. Of course, many people thought that Notre Dame would make the move to the Big Ten for all these years. It looks like something still could happen. Stranger things that happen, but I don't think that's going to be the case now because the Big Ten is not just regionalized anymore with those two West Coast teams we mentioned with USC and UCLA coming in next year. But do you think it's a foregone conclusion that Notre Dame, of course, they have their independence in football, but do you think with all the money's been given to these Power 5 conferences, do you think it's a given, assuming that the ACC stays together, which I think is much more a better situation than the Pac-12, but do you think Notre Dame will automatically join the ACC? Like I said, they're there for the other sports before football is independence. But do you think Notre Dame will join the Big Ten or the ACC, or will they go to another conference that we're not thinking about at the moment? Yeah, it depends on where the money is, I guess.
Well, yeah, I think they like their independence, so they don't have to share that money with anybody. So the one that NBC money they get, and Peacock, I should say NBC and Peacock money, because I guess their games are going to be streamed on Peacock this year. So, I think they don't have to share that money. So I think they'll be fine with, not being being independent still in football. So I think, for me, I think if you're Notre Dame, I think you're in a good spot. I know, like I said earlier, I know Florida State's been chopping that, hey, you know what? Y'all better do something or then we might leave too, the ACC. So I don't think they're going anywhere. I think because they got their own network, they got money coming in. So I think it's just silly for them to kind of spew it out there and whatnot. They may have to secure more TV money in that sense, and they get their share of it too, with their other sports, basketball, volleyball, and baseball and softball and that front. So I don't see Notre Dame doing that. I know they have a new AD now, so it's gonna be interesting to see. He comes from NBC, oddly enough. So you wonder where their mindset's gonna be. So yeah, I mean, I don't think they're gonna go anywhere. I think this is probably gonna be one of the few things that's gonna be status quo in college football.
I think who said this? I think we had Matt Fortuna on from the Athletic on this program last year, and he talked about we brought up the question about Notre Dame, would they be forced to join the conference? And I think he said that only if it's a requirement to participate in the college football playoff, they would do it. Of course, like you said, for football, they'll have to share the money rest of the people in that conference. But if they're forced to join a conference to participate in the college football playoff, they'll do it. But with their current situation right now, if they can, like you said, get away with it, they'll keep on doing it.
They'll be interested to see what happens with that. So, like I said, I mean, all this, conference, Arizona. Look, think about Arizona. I mean, look, some of that, it really shouldn't be a big issue with Arizona if they do decide to go to the Big 12. I mean, some of that, some of them are kind of like right in that, mountain time zone or central time zone. So it shouldn't really be a big. It really shouldn't be a big, adjustment for them, in the football side. So, it's good.
Yeah, as Lakita mentioned, some of those schools in the Mountain Time Zone and in the West Coast Time Zone, last central part of the time zone, that Texas, Nebraska area, it shouldn't be a big deal. And so, so we mentioned with the West Coast teams, with UCLA and USC joining the Big Ten next year, the body clocks will be different. Will these coaches get these young men and young women in a day or two early to get used to the time zone, get used to a different way of I'm not going to say of living, but getting used to the time zone of the cities that they're playing, because right now it's 1:21 p.m. Central Standard Time here in Chicago. It's 11 a.m. on the West Coast, but the East Coast is an extra hour ahead of us, and so it's a 2 to 3 hour time change. And you would think that these coaches would have these situations planned out for the players for basketball and for football. We'll see what happens with that as Lakina rejoins me here. As I was just wrapping up your thoughts about the coaches, and it would be smart for them to plan this out now, i.e. USC and UCLA, again, getting these kids in a day or two early to get used to the time zones.
Yeah, and I think Arizona shouldn't really, like, as I was saying before, I got really paused by Wi-Fi, but I don't think Arizona shouldn't have too much of an issue, because you're still dealing with the Mountain Time Zone and even like the East, like the Central Time Zone for the most part.
Yeah, because they're an hour behind us. I'm talking about the Mountain Time Zone.
Yeah, so Texas, Baylor and Kansas and those places. So it shouldn't really be that big of a stretch or an adjustment for them. Show all this happening, but. It's fine. I mean, look, like I said, this like you said. I mean, this is gonna be on the coaches, and I'm looking at Field Yates's he posted from ESPN. He posted something about the new Big Ten, I guess. You got all the West Coast teams. You got the Midwest region. You got the Mid Atlantic. Slightly during the Northeast. South of the Mason-Dixon line. So north of Mason-Dixon line, I should say. So yeah, sure. What the heck?
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you on the Fun Friday Fun edition. Coming up will be our girl, Miss Christine the Queen Manika from KXRB in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, for her bi-weekly commentary of sports, entertainment, and more. Lakina, let's transition over to basketball. The NBA has told everybody and their mama, as the kids would say, about the whole Damian Lillard trade to Miami situation, even though that has not officially happened yet. Please shut the hell up.
It's kind of hilarious that it's what you're gonna do, put a muzzle on everybody to say, oh well, you can't talk. I mean, it's sort of, we know it's gonna happen. Everybody and their mama knows that it's gonna happen. It's gonna be a matter of when and if they agree on something. So it's just silly to tell people, oh, don't talk about it. Like, what are you gonna do? We're gonna find them. So it's not like they're talking to about it openly. So it's a little bit silly, but yeah, it's kind of silly that they're basically want to put a gag order on them. It's kind of nutty.
And it looks like everybody has a list, Lakina, regarding the NBA as far as all-time players and who's the best of this era, that era, from 80s, 90s, 70s, 60s. Your boy Shaq, a.k.a. Shaquille O'Neal, the big diesel from the NBA on TNT, he came out with a list the other day with his top 10 greatest players. Here's his first team of the greatest players of all time. Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and, of course, himself at center. Any issues?
No, I think that sounds about right. I think you kind of mix it up, of course. I know I'm glad he and Kobe were able to kind of patch things up before, Kobe's untimely death. And look, I think Magic, of course, he played for the same organization, so of course he's gonna be very good about that. Yeah, also I don't have any issues with that list.
Okay, and his second team, part of his top 10 greatest players of all time, talking about Shaquille O'Neal, Steph Curry, Allen Iverson, Tim Duncan, Karl Malone, and Isaiah Thomas.
Interesting. I don't have any issues with that list. I mean, who would you take out? If you're going to put, the first team, of course, Kobe, MJ, LeBron, of course, himself, and Magic. The second team, Malone. I know people want to kind of cancel him because of some of his comments, but let's talk about the basketball side of it for a second. Leave all the other stuff alone. Barkley, Kareem. So yeah, I mean, it's fine. I don't have any issues with it. I mean, look, it's just no. Everybody has different opinions with different eras. So it's Shaq. Look, Shaq saw the Kareem era, right before he got traded to the Lakers. And he was able to kind of really still be sustained success. And of course, Jordan and Malone and Barkley, and then you have of course Kobe and LeBron. I'll say Kobe first. Of course, he played with LeBron and later in that era. So yeah, I mean, who would you take out? I mean, I think this is a nice list. I mean, I think it's he played it very well. I mean, he used guys from like I said, from earlier, from probably when he was born to when he played, and a little bit after that. So yeah, he missed it. So I think that's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. It was interesting to see, and I don't want to make it too big of a deal because they work together, but it's interesting to see that he didn't have Charles Barkley on his list. But like I said, it's his list. He can do whatever he wants. I'm not going to make a big brouhaha about it. I know they go back and forth on the inside of the NBA, and of course the pregame shows as well. So I'm not going to sit here and say that he's throwing shade at Barkley. Let some of you ignorant folks on FS1 and ESPN do that kind of stupid take. But outside of not having Barkley, like you said, or Kareem, I really don't have a problem with this list either. I really don't. So like I said, it's his opinion. He gave it, so you had to take it for what it's worth. That's what I take from it.
He gave a shout out to the current era too. Steph. Of course, he had AI and Duncan and Isaiah, and of course Malone. Look, I mean, I have no issues with him leaving. Look, Kareem, Barkley. I mean, I mean, look, he went by position. So if he had like a top 10 list of all time, maybe Barkley would be on there. But they're talking about by position. So he's going by what he kind of feels like, especially observing and everything else. Like, I don't have no problems with it. I know I saw that folks were trying to make a big deal about it. Like, oh, you didn't have Barkley, your teammate, on that list. So, okay, so what? I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, it's his list. Who cares? I mean, he kind of paid homage. Look, Kareem, and like I said, with AI, of course, and I see, it's nice that AI is now meant for Allen Iverson, not the other stuff. It was I miss those days. Those days, but look, I like he gives Steph his props. I mean, so what? Who cares? It's his list. I mean, look, I'm sure if he had a third team, I'm sure Barkley would be on there. So and Kareem would be on there too. So what? Who cares?
Yeah, we got a couple of minutes left, Lakina. Let's see if we could try this to make this work on the fly. From KXRB Radio in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, she's back in back-to-back weeks for our bi-weekly commentary of sports, entertainment, and more. Here comes our girl, Miss Christine, the Queen Manika. What up, Christine?
Hello.
How are you?
Hello.
Oh, it is a Friday.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I kind of like your shirt, Christine. For those of you that are listening back on the replay at War Media Podcast, what's the message on your shirt?
Yeah, it says I'm the driving force. It was for a campaign for Drive Out Domestic Violence campaign. It's with the Children's Home Shelter for Family Safety here in Sioux Falls.
Nice.
Oh, good. As we always say, we love the work that you do in the community. So keep that up. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got a couple minutes here now. I know that I don't want to start off with some bad news, but I guess we kind of get out the way. But we talked about Leon Hendricks, of course, the reliever from the Sox. We found out on Wednesday that he had Tommy John surgery, so he's going to be out. Could probably miss all of next season, and perhaps maybe he could be back out by the time training for the year after next. 12 to 14 months he's going to be out. So. Chrissy, I'll start with you. What do you think about that news? It's a tough, he's had a tough last few years, and he looked good for that one start. I mean, that one relief spot that he had, but he saw some of the struggles. And what do you think? It's just awful. Like, he's been through a lot, so I feel really bad for him.
No, yeah, it's been a tough 10 months for him for sure, and just to see him come back after beating cancer, that was just a great moment. And knowing how he works and knowing who he is, I think he's going to take this recovery process head on. He's not going to be out and count him out. I should say you shouldn't count him out just yet. But as far as next season, I can see him coming back sometime around this time next year. But before that, I don't see him coming back.
Yeah, like you said, Christine, he already beat cancer. Of course, he still has to do checkups, and hopefully that the cancer doesn't return. But like you said, injuries, athletes suffer through them. I know it's their worst nightmare, but I'm sure he's looking at it and say, yeah, I beat cancer. Of course, Tommy John is tough, but it's nothing worse than beating. This isn't like unlike beating cancer. But cancer actually affects your livelihood. It takes people out. So Tommy John ain't bleak to him. So, like I said, he's going to attack this thing head on. He's going to miss the majority of next year. So, hopefully, like I said, the White Sox, he's a free agent at the end of the year anyway. So, hopefully, the White Sox will sign him to a 2-year deal. And it looks like, I'm sure we'll get into this more after the break, but we'll see what direction the White Sox going as an organization. As they traded Lance Land, Lucas Giolito, Kenyon Middleton, and a couple others. So, for Liam Hendricks, I think the White Sox will pick him up. They should do like a 2-year deal, hopefully, because he's been a lot to the organization for a short time. He's been here.
If anything, I just feel like it's so sudden that this Tommy John came out of nowhere. When I saw that come across, I'm like, wait a minute. It's like I thought I was reading things, so that was definitely a surprise.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were caught off guard with that.
Yeah, one more thing, Chris. Yeah, one more thing, Christine, about the White Sox being there. I know we had to break for the bottom of the hour. Jake Berger. A lot of people on White Sox Twitter was pouring out their glasses for Jake Berger as he was traded to the Miami Marlins. I'm not going to say I wasn't, quote unquote, hurt by it. I was taken surprised by it, but unfortunately, these things happen. Fan favorites get traded all the time. Any last words that you have in your heart and in your brain for Jake Berger as he's now in South Beach playing for the Marlins?
I am just surprised that they only have so few talented guys on the team, right? And you would think if you want to keep the fans in the seats this season, you would keep a guy like him on your roster. So that was, I get it. At the end of the day, baseball is a business, and you gotta send him somewhere where he might actually have a chance to make it to the postseason. But still, we knew about Giolito getting traded, but that Berger, that was a shock that I didn't even know his name was being thrown out there. So you can only wish him nothing but the best, and this is a big return for him back to Miami. So hopefully it will feel like a second home, a homecoming for him.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's already playing dividends too. He had a game-winning RBI, and of course, also they had Burger Night a couple of days ago. Playing off that. So like I said, the Sox. I'm surprised the Sox never did that, but what can you do? So yeah, we're gonna take a really quick break. More of our girl Christine. We'll talk conference realignment. I know she's gonna have stuff to say about that. Also, too, I know Sid's got some sports media news. Coming down the pike as well. So a lot to do and talk about still. There's last half hour, girl Christine Manika from KXRB, Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown's Texas City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We'll be wrapping things up coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver. I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say,
Thank you for
no thanks,
squeezing
not my
me.
thing.
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do
Should've
hear
started
you.
off
Did you
with the
package
bar
it
today?
For tips on how to start the talk,
bar.
visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Okay.
Warm up, Zach.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Good grief. Welcome back to Second City Sports on the Fun Friday Fun edition. This is our last break of the show for the weekend, our last break of the show for today. I'm Sid the Kid. Lakina McGee is she. Christine the Queen is she as well down the bottom of your screen, those of you that are watching. And now she is joined by her soon-to-be husband, her fiance, Mr. Chris Gilman. Chris, welcome back.
Yay!
Hey, what's going on? Happy Friday.
Yeah,
Happy
same to you.
Friday.
Yeah, for those of you that like to get your last-minute comments in, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comments section. McKenna will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, so I want to get this in before we move on here. Now, all the conference realignments and all that stuff. So, what do you guys think about all that? Sid and I, we talked about right before you guys came on. What do you think?
Didn't USC say if Oregon gets in the Big Ten, then they're out? I thought I heard that was a stipulation because they're not officially in it until 2024. But I believe that was some sort of a condition that they had.
I don't remember reading anything about that, but I'm wondering, like, could that? Yeah, I think there might have been, I think early on, maybe before it was all official, I think maybe that was why. I don't know for sure, but a lot, like I said, a lot has happened, a lot has changed, so I have no idea. So yeah, with Arizona perhaps going to the Big 12, and now Oregon, Washington might be going to the Big 10, and then Florida State, they're not happy at the ACC apparently. So yeah, what do you guys think of all the weirdness that's going on here?
I found it funny, and granted, this is not my joke. I'm sure you guys have seen it on social media today and the last couple of days where people think out loud, well, okay, if all these teams from the Pac-10 or Pac-12 are joining the Big Ten, we'll just have one side of the conference, and let's call it the Big Ten. And we'll have one conference that will be, I don't know, let's call it the Pac-12. And then maybe the leaders of those conferences can play in a championship game called the Rose Bowl, something like that. And I just found it so funny because I saw a joke probably 6 months ago that alluded to the greater college football scenario outlook. And it was more or less like, and I'm paraphrasing here, that eventually every team will be in one conference, and then they'll just divide people up regionally, and it'll just end up being the exact same thing that we have now. But I understand that there are certain TV deals that are much more lucrative than than others. Obviously, the Big Ten Network is doing well, and it's thriving, and as far as I know, and the SEC Network does very well too. And I don't know. I don't know enough about it to speculate about the Pac-12 network, but I'm sure that it's a big draw, and getting conference games with real powerhouses like Ohio State and Michigan and so many other teams, and like these ADs and college presidents are seeing dollar signs, and obviously football is the biggest driver of income, probably not only for the sports programs, but for the entire institutions. So I think they feel they have to do it or they get left behind.
Sid?
Yeah. As we talked about earlier, it's all about the money at the end of the day, as Chris mentioned about the SEC. Oklahoma and Texas going to join that conference next year. Of course, USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten. So it's all about money at the end of the day. Of course, the expansion of the college football playoff going from 4 to 12 will take place in the next couple of years. And so it all coincides there. And I'm with you, Chris. I don't like to I used this phrase in our last break. I don't want to see the haves versus the have-nots, but it looks like that's where we're headed in college football in particular, and it shouldn't be that way. I kind of like that story of Cincinnati a couple of years ago, Central Florida moving up the ranks. You going to have more teams, spots open for the expanded college football playoff. How many of those teams for those mid-major schools really have a chance? Really?
It's totally correct. All you have to do is look at weekly rankings, not only for football, but for other sports that have a real dominant single conference. And in those in-conference games, they might lose to each other. And in the SEC, you might go 9-3, but you're still going to be ranked like 8th just because of your strength of schedule, just because you're playing against each other. And whether you agree with that or not, it does keep the same team sort of in-house and the same sort of matchups in the playoffs.
The super conferences, our buddy Sean Davis, told me this like years ago, but he said, look, don't be surprised if by 2020 or 2021 or whatever, we'll have super conferences. It looks like that's where we're headed. So, I'm a big traditionalist when it comes to college sports in that front. So yeah, rivalries and everything. So yeah, it says I'm getting more and more depressed. He said, can we move on?
Yes. Going back to baseball before we have some more news about Chicago's South Side team. Christine, I want to get your opinion too. But Chris, the White Sox did make a trade to acquire Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez last week. Now, Giolito looked okay in his first start last Friday in Toronto, even though the Angels lost. But on Wednesday, he got shellacked and got yanked out of there early. Looks like the Angels are going in the opposite direction. I know those moves they made before the trade deadline said to Shohei Ohtani, we're trying to go for it here, make it to the playoffs. Do you still have faith for the Angels making a serious playoff push?
I don't know. They lost to a 9th inning grand slam last night. That 2 nights ago, maybe now. But
yeah,
yes, 2 nights ago. Excuse me. But I had high hopes for them being like a 90-win team this year, but I really don't think that's going to happen. They're probably going to regress to about 80 to 84 wins, something like that. And so they have no chance to make the playoffs, it appears at the moment, unless they get really hot and unless when Trout gets back, we have like another month or so.
Jeez.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And there obviously there are a lot of games until then, so they have to dig deep. And I joked much earlier in the season that this is kind of Shohei's farewell tour, and he's putting on a heck of a show so far.
How many home runs do you think he'll hit? He has 40 now. Do you think he'll get to Aaron Judge's record of 62 from a year ago?
I don't think so. I am biased. I thought he should have won MVP last year, but that's okay. I think he's doing all that he can right now to solidify his position as, if not the best, one of the most valuable players of the American League and in baseball. I think if he's properly motivated and wants to see how many homers he can hit, I think he's going to get to about 55. It's a pretty nice number. Obviously, with the amount of injuries that they've been having and some holes in the lineup around him, he's been pitched around more often lately, and we all saw the video of the Blue Jays manager last weekend talking to his pitcher about it. But as I think 55 is a very reasonable number for him to get to.
You think the same thing, Christine?
Oh, I'm going to say 60 or 62. I'm the optimist here. He's pretty much on pace. I saw he's on pace to get there. So I think the least that he'll do is 58 or 59. But so far, I think he's going to do it.
Plus, he's probably going to be in the lead a lot of pitching categories. So he might, if not the MVP, he'll probably get a chance to get the Cy Young.
Certainly, that's probably the only thing that may hold him back is just the dual use. He has to burn the candle at both ends, and he has to empty the tank on both ends. Not just give 50% on each. He has to do everything he can because, I mean, he gets a no decision 2 nights ago, and he pitched pretty well, and he obviously hit a home run that day. So it can't. I'm sure it's a little bit discouraging, and by the time you get to September, that can be pretty draining. So that's why I say 55.
Sid?
Yeah, I think Ohtani will. I don't think he's going to get to 60. I think between 50 and 52. Perhaps 55 is a little bit high, but I think Chris was getting on to something. Lakina, you remember this. Barry Bonds on his way to 71 home runs, I believe, in 2001. Everybody was walking him, and he only had that one good pitch to hit. And I think as we get closer to September, and I do mean this in a respectable entertainment way, but heaven forbid that the Angels are even close to a playoff race, you're really going to see Ohtani not getting pitched to. They're going to intentionally walk in. As Chris said, he saw that a couple of times in that Toronto Blue Jays series last weekend. So I think, especially if the Angels get closer to a playoff race, they're definitely going to pitch around them and just walk them intentionally. But the question is, if that starts to happen, which I think it will, no matter what, can Shohei Ohtani take advantage of that one pitch he'll get per ball game?
Right, and I think that should be interesting. There, a little golf here since we got John, Chris. Tiger Woods was named to the board of the PGA Tour. He's going to be overseeing policies and stuff like that. So that could spell doom for the Live PGA Tour kind of alliance. So what do you think? What do you think about that?
Honestly, if you were able to get somebody who is a PGA Tour member, they'd be able to answer this question a lot better than I could, because I don't know what kind of voting rights, whether the 6 people on the Player Advisory Council they all maintain a vote, or if they all have just one as like a single block for voting on things. With regards to the tour. But I do think it's interesting that maybe he's transitioning a little bit, and I know a lot of players on the tour would like to see him be the commissioner, and I don't know if that's an avenue he's looking to explore. But considering what he's everything. On the golf side, he's everything to golf. He is the needle. There's nobody else. So if what he says carries a whole lot of weight, and so it's interesting to see. I'm all for it, and hopefully they can produce some real meaningful change. And I don't know if everything with the the Saudi Public Investment Fund, whether they're going to coexist or we all know Tiger's opinions on it. I don't know if he has to be more of a company man now and go along because he's on the council and isn't that sort of independent, well, okay, this is my opinion sort of response. It's interesting to see. Who knows? Maybe there'll be some sort of a player coup and he'll end up being commissioner anyways.
That might happen, Christine.
Might.
I think from my understanding of it, with him being on the board, he's basically the voice for the players on tour. And I think I saw Rory, Justin Thomas, and a couple of other guys, Ricky Fowler, come out saying, if I need anybody to speak on my behalf, it's Tiger. There's no way that I can imagine anybody else fulfilling that role.
Sid?
I agree. Yeah, he carries the most weight. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to echo some of the same words that you guys were saying. Like Tiger has that presence of golf, not just on the course, but off the course as well. And like you say, you have the respect for most of his peers. Why not be the future commissioner of the PGA one day? As I said before to you guys, I've been preaching on this for years. You need the PGA Tour needs to market out their golfers to younger fans and to casual fans like yours truly. No, there's never going to be another Tiger, but maybe Tiger can help the PGA's marketing department market the game towards younger fans to have them watch it, or casual fans watch it constantly, just like get your people like your children to watch on a regular basis. And who's those guys talking about golfers that has that it personality? Not everyone has it, but who's going to be those guys that, especially those younger golfers that's coming up, that's going to lead the game into the future?
Yeah, and I think that's having someone like Tiger who is well respected by, like you guys said, a lot of the players on tour now, and a lot of the guys modeled their game after Tiger. A lot of them, and a lot of them play because of Tiger. Started playing because of Tiger. So I think having a guy who is well respected, who's a very smart guy, he's a Stanford guy. So I think sure, why not? I mean, maybe if it helps the PGA and the morale there, hey, go for it.
Yeah, you're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you on a Friday afternoon. Of course, we're joined by Christine Manika, Christine the Queen Manika, and her fiance, Mr. Chris Gilman. Of course, Christine, I'll start with you. Yannick Ngugwe signed a 1-year contract with the Chicago Bears. The free agent defensive end, it was 1 year, over $10.5 million. Of course, we begged for a pass rusher to join the Chicago Bears. So what are your thoughts on this move?
Boy, I hope something can happen. I mean, I'm not kidding. Because every time we get guys like this, we either do them right, we either showcase their talents, or in my mind, we bears it up. We just always find a way to mess up great talent. There's a lot of examples that I can think about with that. They just follow the same old playbook. No matter what coach it is, they're keeping that same repertoire going, and I don't fully understand it. On the bright side, Virginia looks fantastic. I saw a couple of pictures on social media the other day with Eberflus and Kevin Gardner on there. She is so adorable, and the fact that she's there at training camp just shows that she's still involved in some way. She may not be able to move around so much, but she still wants to be there, support the team no matter what. So let's hope with a move like this that this can get done. And I believe oh my gosh, who is it? Who's battling ALS? I'm drawing a blank.
Stephen Michael.
Yes. Prayers out to him, because I heard that he was in the hospital last night. He's stable now, but let's get him in the Hall of Fame sooner rather than later.
He is a finalist. He is a finalist for among yesteryear, and also contributors too. So hopefully, fingers crossed that that's the case. Also, too, Mercedes Lewis has been. They signed him earlier this morning. Like, don't they have 500 tight ends already? Like, did I miss something here?
Let's see. They signed Cole Kmet to a 4-year deal, and now they're just going to add someone. Like, okay,
another tight end.
Okay.
That's the way the NFL does these days, isn't it?
No, that's the way of the Bears.
That's the Bears. Yeah, that's the Bears. I'll say that's the Bears. Chris, I forgot. What's your favorite NFL team? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Denver Broncos. So
yeah, we gotta ask about Sean Payton.
Sean Payton's comments. Yes. What do you think about that?
Out of pocket. Don't talk about things that happened in house that when you weren't even there. I don't think that's a good look. Do I think they're going to be better? Yes. Does it sound like the type of culture that brought in is quite a bit different? Yes. It should translate to more success on the field, but he was run out of town. So there's no reason for Peyton to kick him while he's down there. And obviously, was it some of the Jets players fired back at that? So there's no reason for that.
It's pretty on par though, I'd say, for Sean Payton, just to kind of speak his own mind and opinion like that.
Yeah, he's getting older. He is, yeah, and he's getting older now too. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, whatever.
Right.
Exactly. So yeah, who cares? So did you guys watch any of the Hall of Fame games? Speaking of the Jets, did you see that Jets Browns preseason game, Hall of Fame game yesterday?
I just thought it was weird how Aaron Rodgers was in a headset. Like I can't really. It's just funny to see what that future looks like. But I think from what it seems like, if Zach Wilson gave him credit for throwing that 57-yard pass, I think it shows that he's responding in a positive way to Aaron Rodgers, just because he was kind of off the rails a little bit, I think, last year, Zach Wilson, and maybe somehow Rodgers is teaching him how to not be so arrogant in front of the camera rather than off camera. Do whatever you got to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for those of you that are looking for the behind the scenes footage, you'll get to see it this coming Tuesday night on HBO. It's the season premiere of Hard Knocks. Will debut the 2023 New York Jets. You guys are going to be watching it this year?
We need HBO Max.
Yeah, we got so. Yeah, we had it up until about 2 months ago, and just let it expire. So we're gonna have to re-up again.
Now, were you gonna say something about the Zach Wilson, Chris?
Well, obviously he didn't have a very good year last year, and getting to learn from somebody, granted, not somebody that the panelists on the show particularly like too much, but learning from somebody who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and surprisingly, I'm sure to everybody, if Zach is learning from him in a meaningful way, that Aaron is humble enough to actually bestow some knowledge to somebody who needs it. And I mean, quite frankly, it sounds like the Jets they're pushing a little bit. Like they really think that they can compete in the next couple of years. So I guess good on Aaron. And maybe they do have a quarterback for the future after Aaron retires.
I gotta say this. I still think his managers are behind the whole playing nice when it comes to cutting the hair and just doing a whole new appearance for him and a new attitude. So that's my 2 cents on it. He's pretty much getting paid to be nice and to be humble.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, his romance with Sauce Gardner, I mean, that was like kind of a romance that I didn't think we needed, but you saw he gave that nice chain from his jeweler, so I think hey, look, I like to get paid to be nice to uncles.
Yeah.
What if his stipulation was like, if you're nice today, you get another $25,000?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Thank you.
That's it. As we wrap things up here, last few minutes here with our girl Christine Manika and our guy, her fiance Chris Gilman here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown with you as well. Sid, I know you got some couple of sports media news you want to talk about before we disperse.
One interesting news, if you're interested in still watching White Sox baseball, of course, this Sunday's series finale against the Cleveland Guardians will be airing on Peacock at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. One-time White Sox and Hall of Famer, and you can see him on pre- and post-game live for the White Sox on NBC Sports Chicago. Frank Thomas will join Ahmed Fareed on the pregame show, which begins at 10:30 a.m. this Sunday morning. So if you like Frank Thomas, you can watch him there on Peacock this Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And Steve Stone and Rick Manning from the Cleveland Guardians television network will join Brandon Burke to call the White Sox Guardians contest. That's this Sunday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. But that game is exclusively on Peacock. But for those of you that get the games on MLB.TV, like yours, surely though that game will air 90 minutes after its completion.
I will say, if anything, with the White Sox season, I'm disappointed that I can't see Liam Hendricks pitch at my bachelorette party. That's
right. Yeah,
I know.
The whole year. Yeah, almost most of next year. Yeah, I know.
But real quick, you guys, since Dylan Cease did not get traded, his bobblehead night is still on for the last Saturday in August against Oakland. That's Saturday, August 26th.
Oh, that's nice. Yay.
See, I see Christine smiling.
Yay.
I mean, I just want Liam Hendricks to pitch, and I want to see him make his comeback year. So I'm a little bit upset about that.
Oh God. Yeah, taking it. Yeah, don't worry. She's not the only one that's taking it pretty hard. I know some White Sox fans are taking it pretty hard too. Because he's one of the few bright spots, especially too. Of course, he defeated cancer and all that. Now he's dealing with this. But like I said, he'll kick butt like he did with the cancer. And this is nothing compared to what he went through last year and last like 10 or 12 months. So I'm sure he'll kick butt in this. So anything else you guys want to talk about before we disperse? I know. Are you guys watching the Women's World Cup? I think the U.S. play late tonight or early tomorrow night against Sweden in the knockout round.
You know, every time I go into the studio, I see like the tail end of it since I'm in there so early in the morning, and then just the highlights after that. So I guess it depends on how long we can stay up.
Like early bird, I guess. So yeah, I mean, well, real quick, Carly Lloyd's comments. I mean, I kind of feel like, look, she's just speaking from a place where, look, she was making these comments even before she left. She retired. So, I mean, you think of Morocco, Nigeria, Jamaica, South Africa. I mean, a lot of those teams are going to be, especially the way they've been treated by their federations too. I mean, Jamaica had to get a GoFundMe to get to New Zealand and Australia. So, and now they're in this round of 16. I mean, I'm not gonna look. Don't throw anything at me, guys. But I wouldn't be surprised if the U.S. lose and not win the World Cup again, just because the world's caught up. But I don't know how you guys feel about it. But I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, especially after seeing them in the group stage.
Agree. Let's go back to one of the federations you mentioned. I guess the American coach for the Nigerian women's team hasn't been paid by the federation yet whatsoever. So, to your point, there's some tough situations, and the women are in all these more developing soccer, football, whatever you like to call it, countries. They're showing out. I mean, Brazil's out, Germany's out, and it's great to see new and upcoming countries really develop their national teams, and I think that makes the product a whole lot better too. So I don't know. I feel like there are plenty of people on the U.S. women's national team that sort of side with some of the more outgoing personalities on the team. But again, it could create an us versus them mentality where they hunker down and stick together, or it could tear them apart. I'm really not sure. I don't know what's going to happen with the women this next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think you're well said. Said, you got anything else before we?
One bit of good news as we end this broadcast today. Friend of the show, Jason Ross Jr. Well, he was the first African American to call a Blackhawks game a couple of years ago. We had him on this show.
Yeah,
we had to get him back on here again. Of course, he's doing a great job with the Chicago Sky and the Marquee Sports Network. He's now one of the lead voices for Big Ten football coming this fall on the Big Ten Network. So congratulations to him. So that young man's moving up very quickly in our business.
Yeah, and I think he's also going to be calling a couple of Lions preseason games, if I'm not
yes.
I read that somewhere. Yeah, earlier this week.
Yes.
So yeah, we got to get him on before that. So yeah, we had a great time with him. So yeah, hopefully we'll have him on. And on that happy note, you can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, and Keenan McGee on the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Cindy Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's X, SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Christine, where can the lovely people follow you on social media?
Well, it's still the bird because I have
She's not giving it the X.
At Christine Manika _KXRB.
And Chris, where people can follow you on social media?
On the X, because mine just did it all by its own. So, Golfer Gilly, all one word, GILLY.
Nice. And yeah, I will say, yeah, Chrissy, you're one of the lucky ones, a few lucky ones that has not changed. So.
Retweet.
It still says retweeted instead of reposted.
Is that what it is? It's reposted?
Yes, repost.
Yeah.
What?
Repost.
Yes.
What?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Join the threads. Just in case Twitter goes in the hell in the handbasket.
Look, I'm staying on until it all burns down. So I'm here. You can catch the show every Monday, every Friday right here on Sports Zone Chicago at noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Also, you can catch us on War Media Podcast, wherever your podcast, anytime, anywhere.
Yes, and don't forget you also catch Sports Zone Chicago along with all of our shows on the Sports Zone Chicago network on Roku TV.
All right, so I know stay cool, everybody. I know it's hot like everywhere around the country. So yeah, please stay cool, pace yourself. Be good to each other. This is Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago for Sid and Christine and Chris. I'm Manika. You guys have a great weekend, a safe weekend, and we'll see you Monday.
Duh, Bears. Holla!